His claims are bizarre.
Aliens are here on planet Earth. Our political leaders, okay, prime ministers, presidents, vice presidents, senators, not all of them, but most of them are not really human. They are reptilian aliens hiding behind human form.
His story, nearly impossible to believe.
Look, I am not a conspiracy theorist. Before all of this began, if you would have told me that aliens or UFOs were real, I would have laughed in your face. But what we captured on video is real.
Is this man just another desperate filmmaker looking for publicity? Or is he telling the truth?
If I am lying to you, tell me, who burnt down my apartment? You checked with the fire department. They told you, they confirmed to you that this was an act of arson. The U.S. government did this to try and destroy my evidence. To try and shut me up.
And if this man is not lying, how then are we to explain the death of this U.S. Marine?
This is the Marine that we were working with. He came forward to talk to us about this alien conspiracy, and now he's dead. That's not a coincidence. U.S. government assassins murdered him and his family, and they made this look like a suicide.
Because he blew the whistle?
Yes, because he blew the whistle. Because he came forward to tell us what he had seen. Vice President Dick Cheney turning from a human into an alien.
And if his story is nothing more than a hoax, who was it that destroyed his best friend's life?
Brandon and I, we went too far, man. We got too close to the truth. And now his life, and my life, it's over.
Is this man to be believed? Did he indeed capture on his video camera the most important story of our time? Or is he lying? On this edition of Truth Seeker TV, we will reveal what our investigation into this man's account unearthed, and what we found may shock you. Los Angeles, California, December 2005. Our subject has agreed to grant us an interview, but only if we protect his anonymity. Because he fears for his life, we have agreed not to call him by his real name. For the purpose of this report, we will refer to him as Mr. X. Okay, Mr. X, tell us your story.
It's really not my story. It's Brandon Corey's story. Brandon was a successful businessman and a father of two. And he was a great dad. I mean, he was raising these kids on his own after his wife Mary left him. Brandon was a good person, no doubt about it. But he was so naive. He trusted people too easily. See, he loved to learn, and so he was always hanging out with these super intelligent people. But some of these people, some of these so-called friends, they were not genuine. Brandon had been hanging out with this character named Jude Kemper. Kemper was a documentary filmmaker, and he was making this movie on Vice President Dick Cheney. It's a very anti-Dick Cheney film. And during the filming of it, before he could finish it, Jude Kemper disappeared.
The anti-Dick Cheney film Jude Kemper was making at the time of his disappearance was entitled The Warmonger. While Kemper's film was never finished, Truthseeker TV has procured the following clip.
There is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction. There is no doubt that he is amassing them to use against our friends, against our allies, and against us.
Vice President Dick Cheney is not just a greedy, thieving warmonger. There is much more to the shapeshifter that has yet to be revealed. The real Dick Cheney must be exposed.
What was your opinion of Jude Kemper?
I didn't like him. I mean, I didn't agree with his politics at all. I mean, Christ, I voted for Bush and Cheney. But I can see how a guy like Brandon fell under Jude's spell. Brandon was naive. And Jude was tricky.
This is Brandon Corey's ex-wife, Mary Hill. We asked Miss Hill for her impressions of her ex-husband's best friend and guru, Jude Kemper.
Jude was definitely in your face when it came to his political views. Very left-wing, and he wanted everybody to know it. He's a very intelligent person, you know, no doubt about it. Very articulate, but out there. Conspiracy stuff. He once went on and on to me about how we are living in Orwellian times and how one day very soon we will be living in a police state, and I don't know. To be honest, he was not tactful, and at times he was inappropriate.
How so?
He kept referring to Vice President Dick Cheney as a terrorist and a Satanist.
Dick Cheney and the masters he serves are not here on planet Earth to bring peace and prosperity through public service. This is only their cover. These lizards are here to enslave humanity by creating war, chaos, and destruction.
Jude was trying to finish this documentary film he was making, The Warmonger. So Brandon invited a bunch of us up to his house in Malibu to screen the film, to watch it. But the film didn't have an ending. It was missing its final scene. So we watched the film all the way up until the ending, and that's when Jude stood up and he told us what his idea was for the final scene of his film. And that's when he talked about this incident in England. This disgruntled English person broke into one of the Queen's castles in England. And he was able to make it all the way into the Queen's bedroom, where, according to Jude, he sat on the Queen's bed and had a 10-minute conversation with the Queen of England before he was captured.
The incident Jude Kemper was referring to is well known to the English. In July 1982, Michael Fagan breaks into Buckingham Palace and manages to have a 10-minute conversation with the Queen in her bedroom before being arrested by her guards. The daring stunt shocks the nation as authorities scramble to justify the breakdown in national security. So what does the Buckingham Palace break-in have to do with the ending to Jude Kemper's film?
Because Jude was planning to do the same thing to Vice President Cheney.
You mean to break into the Vice President's room and to have a conversation with him?
Yes, but unlike the guy in England, Jude's idea was to wear this hidden internet camera and capture this entire conversation on tape. And then he was going to use it as the final scene in his documentary.
So what was Jude Kemper planning to say to Dick Cheney?
I don't know, I asked him, but he wouldn't say. It was weird, he kept saying, all will be revealed, all will be revealed.
Facing unrelenting criticism for what was being seen by many as an illegal war in Iraq, Vice President Dick Cheney travelled to Los Angeles on January the 14th, 2004, where he gave a speech designed to invigorate declining support for his war on terror. In Los Angeles, Mr. Cheney was met by record numbers of anti-war protesters. One of them would be Brandon's mentor, filmmaker Jude Kemper.
Jude disguised himself as a Secret Service agent. He strapped on one of these hidden internet cameras. He broke into the hotel in Century City where Dick Cheney was set to give a speech later that day. He made it all the way up to the penthouse suite, to the penthouse floor, where he was arrested by U.S. Secret Service agents. The agents brought him into a room, they questioned him, and they beat him. They beat him pretty bad. I mean, so bad that his camera died.
But there is no record of Jude Kemper's arrest. The FBI and the Secret Service claim that no such arrest was ever made.
That's because they're trying to cover this up. Jude Kemper had very specific information about Vice President Dick Cheney. Information that the government doesn't want the world to see.
Okay, now back to the footage. Jude's camera captured it, but how did Brandon get it?
Brandon's computer at his house in Malibu was set up with the software to receive the signal.
To better understand how Jude Kemper's hidden camera could have survived without he himself resurfacing, we sought the advice of an expert in internet camera technology. Explain to me how these web cameras work.
What it was a camera that's the size of a button, like on your shirt. And we would put that button, that camera, in a place that would look natural. And then utilizing the same technology that your cell phone uses enables anything seen by this camera to be picked up by your computer on the internet.
In an effort to ascertain the legitimacy of the footage, I spoke with retired Secret Service agent Lem Braggs. Mr. Braggs has first-hand knowledge of presidential detail, having been on the team protecting President Reagan the day he was shot. Mr. Braggs, in your opinion, is this footage real?
There are several things we have to look at in an effort to verify the accuracy of this footage. First, the Situation Room. That does follow United States Secret Service protocol. After a suspect's arrested, he's detained on the premises while the Vice President's removed. And as far as I can tell, what I saw in that footage, that room, is accurate as far as in terms of equipment.
There is something very curious about these images. Jude Kemper gains access to the hotel by what appears to be underground tunnels. What do you know about these tunnels?
I'm reluctant to talk about the tunnels. There's a tunneling system underneath the Century Plaza Hotel. As a matter of fact, there are tunnels that crisscross the whole of the United States.
For what purpose?
The transportation and protection of dignitaries, politicians, presidents, vice presidents, chiefs of staff, diplomats.
But even if Jude Kemper had knowledge of these tunnels, it wouldn't exactly be easy for him to access them, now would it?
There's absolutely no way. The tunneling systems in our country are impossible to penetrate. There is difficult to access as the Oval Office.
So then you're saying that another Secret Service agent, perhaps a mole, let Jude Kemper pass?
That'd be the only way.
After he had watched Secret Service agents assaulting his friend, Brandon copied the footage to a DVD disc and brought it in to the Los Angeles Police Department. Truthseeker TV has confirmed that Brandon spoke with a police detective named Scott Purcell. Purcell took down Brandon's statement and promised that he would get back to him. But he never did. Detective Purcell refused us the opportunity to interview him for this report. What did Brandon do after the police failed to investigate?
He went to the Secret Service. He went to the FBI. But they all ignored him. They refused to do anything. And that's when he started writing letters. And he wrote a lot of letters. I mean, he wrote to Congress, he wrote to his senators. I think he even wrote a letter to the president. But nothing happened. Everyone was ignoring him.
According to Mr. X, after weeks of trying to get both local authorities and the federal government to help him get justice for his friend, Brandon made a decision that would prove to be fatal. He decided to go looking for Jude on his own. So Brandon goes on his search for Jude, and he hires you to videotape him while he investigates. Why film this?
Because he had a sense that he was getting in over his head and he wanted it documented in case something went wrong, which it did.
Do you regret getting involved in Brandon's investigation?
Lady, I don't have a home anymore. What do you think?
Where's the first place you went on your investigation?
We went to Detective Scott Purcell's house. Now, this is the detective that Brandon originally filed the missing persons report with. The guy that had been ignoring Brandon's phone calls. Is this him?
It is him.
How did you find out where he lived?
If you have enough money, you can find out where anybody lives.
Detective Purcell, Brandon Corey. We've met before. I'm now doing a documentary about my friend Jude Kemper's abduction.
What are you doing here?
I wanted to ask you a few questions about the case.
Who's he?
That's He's, we're doing a documentary.
And take off.
He's with me.
No, I don't care. Get him off my property. Now!
I just wanted to ask
Get him
you
off my property.
Go across the street.
Maybe you didn't understand me. I said get off my property.
Go on. Go across the street.
Turn that thing off.
Listen, turn it off. I just wanted to ask you a few questions. I haven't heard
What
from
the hell do
you
you
in 2
think
months.
you're doing? What do you... This is my house, okay? This is where I live with my family. My wife is in there. My children are in there. Now, I got to explain to them why I got somebody coming over here with a cameraman to my property.
I understand. Listen, I'm sorry.
You know where I work? You could have contacted me there.
I left you like 30, 40 messages over the last 2 months. A friend of mine's been abducted.
I understand that.
And what's happening with the case? I'm just trying to find out. I'm not trying to intrude here. I mean, I respect that, but I need to know what's happening.
I'm only going to say this once. I'm not going to answer any of your questions. I'm not on the case anymore. That's it.
Well, who's on the case?
I told you, I'm not going to answer any more of your questions. I'm not working the case anymore.
So that's where our tax dollars go, huh? Jesus Christ. You've got to have some kind of information. Help me here. Something, a lead.
I'm not answering
Who can I
any
talk to?
other questions. Off.
But who?
Get off.
Jesus Christ.
It confirmed exactly what we thought, that the United States government had gotten to Detective Purcell and stopped him from investigating.
After exhausting all official channels, Brandon turns to the private sector by hiring this private investigator.
Brandon had provided this private investigator with all kinds of information on Jude. An old driver's license, an old Social Security card, anything that we could get our hands on. And we thought, this is probably going to get us somewhere in this case. But this is when things started to get really, really weird.
I hope you didn't loan this guy any money. It looks like a scam. All the documents you gave to me look really good on their face, but when we go to check them out, there is no Jude Kemper.
What do you mean there's no Jude Kemper?
Well, it's probably one of the best phony identities I've ever seen, but according to my records, he doesn't exist.
This is a friend of mine. We've known each other for 6 years. You got his phone bill. You got his property deed. He owns his house.
Well, as far as property goes, it's owned by a mortgage company in Los Angeles. The DMV says that the driver's license was never issued. The vehicle registration, they say, is fake. Social Security card comes up as a no issue. There's no credit records. There's not even a postal forwarding on the guy.
We hang out together. He's a friend of mine. He is a real person. So what other alternative could there be?
Well, if that's the case, the only other alternative that it could possibly be would be some type of cover-up. And the only people I would know that would have that kind of wherewithal would be the federal government.
Well, then they're doing something. Then what do we do about it? Where do we go from here?
No, it's not a we situation if that's the case. I quit because I don't need that kind of trouble.
So what, I'm on my own here?
Yeah, I would say so.
There is much more to the shapeshifter that has yet to be revealed. The real Dick Cheney must be exposed.
According to Mr. X, it's at this point that Brandon Corey gets creative by starting this missing persons website, findjudenow.com. Using the same internet marketing strategies that had helped make Brandon a millionaire, his findjudenow.com generated so much publicity that just 2 months after starting it, the website was recording millions of visitors. This is Brandon's brother-in-law, Mark Hill. We spoke to him about the website Brandon started for Jude.
Brandon was a businessman. He was a smart guy. He would pay these college students, $12 an hour to trade links. Dozens of them. I mean, he had an army of college students trading links on this thing, and it just exploded. It was out of control. And that's when he started getting all the mainstream press.
I'm Brian Whitman. This is Fight for Freedom, your late-night forum to discuss the issues that mold your mind and corrupt your soul.
Because of the success of Find Jude Now, Brandon next accepted an invitation to appear on this right-wing radio talk show.
Maybe you don't know that the Internet has seen a proliferation of anti-government, even anti-civilization sentiment that threatens the very fabric of our republic. Conspiracy theorists have always annoyed me, but today it seems that every wacko from Baltimore to Baghdad has a voice in cyberspace that they're exploiting to try and destroy America. My guest tonight is one such voice. Mr. Brandon Corey joins us. Welcome to the Lion's Den.
Thank you. Appreciate being on the show.
All right, you've got a website, www.findjudenow.com. The website is somewhat of a phenomenon. You're getting 10 million hits per month, you tell me. For the audience's benefit, so they might put this into some context, why don't you tell us about your little website?
Well, Brian, the website was created for Jude Kemper. Jude is a very good friend of mine that I've known for years, a wonderful person, a political activist. In March of 2004, Jude went to a fundraiser here in Los Angeles with a surveillance camera to try to interview Vice President Dick Cheney. And that's where it pretty much all began. He gets apprehended by the Secret Service. You can literally see all the footage online, and the camera goes dead, and that's the last we've seen of him.
The world is in the gutter, folks, and one of the main reasons for the rapid descent is the likes of Brandon Corey. I have seen your website. I have seen the $10 production that you've got up there. I have seen the fiction that you're offering.
What is that supposed to mean, the fiction? This is a guy who has been abducted. He was a little bit of a radical in some regards, but this guy was a good person.
A little bit of a radical in a post 9/11 world, dressing up as a Secret Service agent to sneak past Secret Service.
No, it is ridiculous. You're right.
Well, you know,
but that's not a reason for him to be abducted. This guy is missing.
My
now.
opinion is it's fiction. And
What do you mean it's fiction?
Well, look,
What do you mean? What?
do you know what fiction is?
Yes, but you're saying what? So it
Phony.
So it didn't happen. So
Fraudulent.
So where's Jude
Hooked
at
up.
then? So where
I don't
is
know
he?
where's Waldo?
This isn't a joke, Brian. This is somebody's life here.
Yeah.
This is somebody's life that you're making a mockery
No,
of.
I'm not making a mockery.
It's fine to say it was wrong. It's fine for you to I totally agree with you with posing as a Secret Service. Should he have been handcuffed, arrested, and maybe even sent to jail? Absolutely. That didn't happen. He's gone. He's been abducted. I'm merely trying to find out what happened. The cops could care less. The government could care less. What if this happened to you? What if a member of your family or a good friend of yours was suddenly missing?
All right, so go to the website, findjudenow.com. If you don't know where Jude is, you just might want to check out the website, go to the online gift shop, have your credit card handy, maybe buy a coffee mug or a T-shirt. We'll take a short break. We'll get right back to your phone calls in a moment after the break. All right, we're going to take some phone calls here. You'll need headphones for that.
You got a great job, Brian.
It's good work if you can get it.
You don't really believe that I made this up, do you? I mean, I know you're trying to get callers to call in and stuff like that, but be honest with me. You think this is a hoax?
I say what I believe on the air.
You do?
Yeah.
So you think this is a hoax?
Why don't you just talk to me about this when we get back from the break?
And that's the reason you had me on?
Save it for the air.
Brandon and I were no longer living together, of course, but we did see each other because of the kids, and we were close. And he would mention getting hundreds of emails per day because of the website. Every nut in the world claiming to know where Jude was. All the calls were pretty much bogus. But the person they met in D.C. we now know was the real deal.
So this Marine, didn't he know that he was being filmed?
Well, I didn't think he knew. See, I was back a good 200 yards on the steps of the Lincoln Monument. Brandon was wired for audio. And we got him, picture and audio. But barely.
After returning from special assignment in Iraq, where I worked to provide security for visiting U.S. officials, I was sent to a place called Bohemian Grove, here in America. Have you heard of this place, Mr. Corey? No, what is it? Bohemian Grove is a private compound. It stretches across 3,000 acres of redwood forest in Northern California. It's where the leaders of the world go to worship. What do they worship? At Bohemian Grove, I was assigned to work with the U.S. Secret Service to help provide protection for a secret meeting that was to be attended by major political leaders. I was assigned to protect an area off the kitchen of the main house. While I was securing this area, I heard a strange sound coming from the floors below. It was an ominous chanting sort of sound. I worked my way toward the chanting, and after what must have been at least 15 minutes, I found the room that chanting was coming from. And that's where I saw it. What did you see? I saw a shapeshift, Mr. Cora. What's a shapeshift? Your friend Jude broke into the Century Plaza Hotel dressed as a Secret Service agent. Once inside, he was trying to make his way toward a hotel suite being guarded by 2 agents. Inside that room was Dick Cheney. Ask yourself why Jude wanted to get into that room. Jude was trying to get into that room to get him to talk about the war in Iraq, to get him on camera admitting that he lies to the American people. No. Your friend Jude might have been crazy, but he wasn't stupid. You don't breach national security and risk getting killed just to have a conversation with the vice president. Keep digging, Mr. Corey. Keep digging and you'll find the answer. Wait a minute, sir. You said something about seeing a shapeshift. What is that? Watch Jude's film, Mr. Corey, and you'll find some answers in it. I've watched it 100 times. Keep digging. Keep digging, Mr. Corey. Good luck.
After we got back from D.C., we watched Jude's documentary again, and sure enough, there it was, that word.
There is much more to this shapeshifter that has yet to be revealed. The real Dick Cheney must be exposed.
See, we had heard it before, but now it meant something to us. It was that word that the Marine in D.C. had mentioned.
I saw a shapeshift, Mr. Corey. A shapeshift, Mr. Corey. A shapeshift, Mr. Corey.
Next, we went to Jude's house in the San Fernando Valley to see if we could find any more information on this shapeshifting. But when we got there, it was condemned.
Shit, it's locked. You got a flashlight?
So how did you get in?
We broke it. Give me the camera back.
The power's out.
Jesus Christ, this guy. I didn't know your boy went to Yale.
I didn't either.
That's weird.
What's so weird about that?
I think he would have mentioned it. These drawers are empty.
Here's that book from David Icke. This is that guy that Rowan was talking about on the phone.
I got the same thing over here.
Shh. What? 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 Sounds like whispers.
Hello? Hello?
No! Take the camera. Hand me the camera. Hand me the camera.
See, this was a weird thing, because we definitely felt that somebody was in that house. So when I got back to my house, I put the footage, my footage, into my editing software. And as the frames progressed, I slow-moed it, and then I lightened the image quality. And that's when you can see it. 3 figures hopping over that fence. There were people at that house watching us.
At Jude's house, Brandon had come across 3 different clues that interested him. First, he finds a book by a writer named David Icke. Icke is a world-famous author and speaker who has written extensively about this phenomenon, shapeshifting. Secondly, Brandon finds a Bible-type book by a cult known as The Arena.
And then we go onto the internet and we research this cult, the Arena, and we find out that they believe that the leaders of the world are really shape-shifting reptilians, that hiding behind human form, they are really, these lizard people.
Finally, Brandon finds a videotape. On it, he finds footage of women talking about being ritually abused by shape-shifting reptilians.
But one thing you must know is you are surrounded by millions of reptilian men.
Days later, Brandon and Mr. X travelled to England to meet with David Icke. Icke is a former professional footballer whose promising career was cut short by rheumatoid arthritis. He then became a well-known sports broadcaster for the BBC, but later turned to writing numerous books on the occult, and has become the world's most controversial and most popular conspiracy theorist, selling millions of books and speaking to thousands at packed venues all over the world.
DNA decides the characteristics of the body. Now, scientists think they know a lot about DNA. They know shit about DNA compared with the reptilians. They have the ability and the knowledge to move to the human codes of the DNA and appear to us to be human, and move then to the reptilian codes of the DNA and shift literally in front of your eyes into a reptilian form.
But have people witnessed this?
Well, I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of people who have witnessed this. I've come across endless stories. One of them, for instance, came from a victim of US government mind control. There are these massive mind control projects. And she tells the story in her book, and she told me personally, of how she was with George Bush, the father, in the White House when he was vice president, and he told her they were a extraterrestrial race that had taken over the planet, but no one realized it because they looked human. They came from a far-off space place.
He told her this?
He told her this.
Did they not, want to kill her? I mean, that's
well, who's going to believe it, Brandon? That's the defense mechanism. It's so fantastic. And he said that they had the ability, these hybrids, to move between human and reptilian form. That's exactly what we're talking about with shape-shifting. And interestingly, the first things to go, and that which goes quickest, is the eyes. They move to a reptilian form first. And it often happens when these guys are in a real emotional state or really, really angry. It starts to move that DNA shift.
David, I wanted to ask you about some disturbing footage that I got in Los Angeles. Some really bizarre, it's really bizarre. It's these women that claim that they've had sexual relations and relationships with these reptilians. I mean, have you heard of this before?
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. I've heard it from so many different people around the world that this abuse and stuff goes on. Oh, fuck, what's going on here? All right, okay. We have to have permission. We have to have permission to film in a place that we taxpayers pay for. Are you winding me up?
I'm afraid not, sir.
Well, over here, you see, you've got this bloody protest here against the Iraq war. It's been going on for bloody 3 years. And the other night, they pulled it all down. In the middle of the night, the police, you can't even protest against people who are killing thousands of children and civilians in Iraq. You can't do it. It's against the law. See, peace is against the law. The law is against peace. But in there, where they want to go on their wars of conquest and kill thousands of bloody children, the law is on their side to do that. It's a free country. Please. Intelligent life calling planet Earth. We are not being served by the people we elect. We serve the people we elect. Okay, I got an idea. In this neo-Nazi state where you can't film your own public buildings, why don't we just walk and can just come behind us and we'll just chat away? Stick it in your jacket. That's probably the best thing.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
And amazing, isn't it? This is free Britain, ladies and gentlemen.
So, according to Mr. Icke's instruction, you then hid your camera inside your jacket?
Yes, I had to. Otherwise, they would have shut us down.
David, let me ask you about it. Have you ever heard of a group called The Arena?
No, what's that?
It's in Los Angeles. It's a group. I got to be honest with you. I'm concerned about it because they've been following me, and I'm wondering if I'm safe from these guys. It's called The Arena.
I've never heard of The Arena, but all over the world there are hundreds of thousands of groups and cults that work in secrecy that you would call secret societies, secret groupings, and in the end they fit together to form the web of global control and manipulation. But I've never come across specifically The Arena. No,
let me ask you, if you, since I've now found out about them and they know that I've found out about them, I've been followed by them, am I safe? Am I in trouble here?
Well, first of all, the fact they're following you means you're going down a road they don't want you to go. So that's good. It means you're on a trail that's worth pursuing.
But I'm worried. I'm worried. I got kids.
You have a choice, Brandon, right? You can walk away and let them intimidate you and go into your nice life and forget about Jude and forget about all this shite, right? Or you can say, hold on a minute, at this point in my life, I'm going to do something about the injustice and the manipulation and the horrors that go on in this world, and so I'm going to uncover this and I'm going to keep going.
So you said that David Icke gave Brandon a sort of walking tour of London to show him this so-called reptilian symbolism.
Yes, again, David Icke told us that this is where the reptilians operated their central base from, and that this is where the reptilian symbolism was, most noticeable.
What I want to do is show you something here. Like I say, this is one of the great global epicenters of reptilian manipulation through this, if you like, secret society network. It calls itself the Illuminati.
Right.
Now, what are the chances, just by coincidence, of the logo, the very image of this city, being that? There it is. It's two flying reptiles holding a shield. Now that shield is the symbol of the Knights Templar. And if you look over there, you've got a colour version of it. All over this place, mate, you'll see these images.
Icke believes that because the reptilians rule in secrecy, that they've placed symbolism all over the world to signify their dominance over humanity. But after touring London all day, looking at all this symbolism, all this evidence, Brandon was unconvinced. And he told Icke,
I'm not buying that shape-shifting reptilians exist because I see a lizard on a lamppost, or I see lions on the front of a building. I mean, does that mean? And Princess Diana refers to somebody as being inhuman, so now automatically they're killing people, and I'm not buying it. I can't.
You ain't buying, Brandon, and that's good because I ain't selling. All I'm telling you is a few of the strands, a few of the puzzle pieces.
How is something on a statue a strand? That's all I'm saying.
It's a puzzle piece among vast numbers of other puzzle pieces in the millions of words I've written on this. And when you see the puzzle pieces put together, and you don't do that in a day going around London, then you'll start to realize the credibility of it. But I'm not trying to sell you anything.
No, I know you're not trying to sell it, but you're showing me evidence, and I got to be honest with you, I don't think the evidence is that compelling. I don't think it's credible. I'm not buying it.
It's a few strands in a massive tapestry.
I don't know, man. Maybe David's got onto something. I mean, it's pretty...
What do you mean maybe David's onto something?
Maybe he's onto something. I mean, what, do you think he's a con man? What did you...
No, I think...
You heard him.
I think he believes this crap. That's what's scary.
Well...
What's even scarier is that we flew 7,000 miles to listen to him for a day.
What about the 12-step thing? To have a meeting about people that are having relationships with reptilians? You bought it too. Don't act like
you haven't bought it.
You're the one who you. What do you mean bought it? You were.
I didn't buy it.
Listen.
I never ever once in my life on this planet have said the reptilians could exist. And if you think that, there's something seriously wrong with you.
No, you're lying about it. You said that David Icke might be onto something, and it's a good thing that we're going to London.
Yeah, because I wanted to come to London, ding dong.
Oh yeah, now you're saying it because you didn't feel cool about what he was saying.
I needed to get away from my fucking hypocrite.
Listen, I'm not saying I buy what David is, everything that David's talking about, and it's confusing. I'm simply saying maybe he's right that you can't figure it all out in a day. That's all I'm saying.
On the plane ride home from London to Los Angeles, Mr. X told us that Brandon started to show signs of depression and hinted that he was thinking about giving up his search for Jude. But then Brandon changed his mind. Why?
No, he didn't change his mind. They changed it for him. While we were in England meeting with David Icke, someone broke into Brandon's house.
Give me your cell phone. I gotta get the kids out of school. Hello?
But they didn't take anything of value. They left the jewelry, they left the flat screen TVs. The only stuff they took was the information related to Jude, to the Jude case.
Hello, Mr. Koch. Yes, this is Brandon Corey. I've got kind of an emergency situation. I need to get both of my sons out of school immediately, and I'm coming by to pick them up. But I need you to keep both your eyes on them till I get there.
Mr. X tells us that the very next day, Brandon hired 24-hour private security to protect his children, and, fearing for his own life, he moved out of his Malibu home.
Then he moved into a friend of ours' garage. It was getting really bad. I mean, you know, he was obsessed. He wasn't sleeping, he wasn't bathing. He was 24/7 combing and recombing the evidence that he had, trying to find a new lead.
But I thought all of the information, all of the evidence that he compiled on his Jude investigation had been stolen in the burglary.
Everything had except one thing. The one thing that he took with him to London to show David Icke. Jude's hidden camera footage. And Brandon watched this stuff, man, obsessively. He went over that DVD, must have been 1,000 times. And it's a good thing he did, because that's when he found it.
Okay, you rolling?
Yeah, I'm rolling.
Okay, listen, just stay with me with this, okay? Just hear me out for a few minutes, all right? I'm going to start from the top. We know for a fact that Vice President Dick Cheney was speaking at that hotel in Century City on January 14, 2004. We also know for a fact that Jude went to the hotel on that same day to try to approach the Vice President wearing a hidden camera disguised as a Secret Service agent. You're with me, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right here. How does he get past these guys? We don't know, but he gets past these guys in through the hotel lobby, okay? He's gotten past 2 or 3 Secret Service agents somehow. Okay, look at this guy. This guy is obviously securing the elevators, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Doesn't it look like he's looking right at Jude?
It looks like he could be, yes.
Jude gets right by this guy. He gets right by this guy, he gets inside the elevator, and he hits PH, which we've seen, which stands for what? The penthouse floor. Now, look at this. If you look at the footage here very closely, you can see, bring the camera in here for a second. Look at the floor here. See how it's carpeting and then it changes here? It's shiny. Does that look like that could be a marble floor?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got 2 Secret Service agents standing on what could be a marble floor in front of a doorway. So what could they be securing?
It could be the penthouse suite.
Could be the penthouse suite. Who could be in the penthouse suite at this very moment? Who could be in the penthouse suite this day?
Dick Cheney, Brandon.
Dick Cheney. Exactly. In my opinion, Dick Cheney's in that room. Remember what the Marine told us in D.C.
Your friend Jude broke into the Century Plaza Hotel dressed as a Secret Service agent. Ask yourself why Jude wanted to get into that room.
So what's your point?
My point is that Dick Cheney was in that room shape-shifting. Jude knew it, that's why he was going to that room. He had the hidden camera, he was walking in there to capture it on film. Let me continue on with the footage here. Okay, they arrest him, they bring him into this command center type room, all right? This is where they start questioning him. These guys are starting to get rough with him. Now this guy here, this guy's the guy who beat him the hardest. Did you see that?
No, see what?
Bring the camera in, I'll slow-mo it, okay? Right before the camera goes dead, watch this. Watch this guy's eye. Look at that.
What is that?
That's not a normal pupil. A human pupil is round. That's a vertical pupil. What has a vertical pupil? Those lizard people, those reptilians. Remember what David said to the taxi cab in London. He said, when these people shapeshift, they do it in a fit of rage, and the first thing to go is their eyes. Had Jude's camera not have been knocked dead, he'd have gotten a full shapeshift on film. Think it through here, man. We've followed up every lead. We went to Jude's house. What did we find? We found that book on David Icke. We know that. What else did we find? We found that other book, that Bible-type book from that group, The Arena. That's the only thing that we haven't followed up on is that group, The Arena.
This is Professor Richard Wayman, who heads the Department of Occult Research, a non-profit organization in Denver, Colorado. Professor, can you tell us about this group, the Arena?
Well, the Arena believed that man was created when Eve joined into a sexual union with the serpent in the Garden of Eden, thus creating man to serve and carry out the will of the serpent race, or lizard people, as some refer to them.
Can you explain what you mean when you say the lizard people?
Yes, the Arena believe that there are many people that walk among us who look human but really aren't. They call them the lizard people.
How did you find where this group, the Arena, resided?
Brandon was in contact with the Marine in D.C., and he gave us the address.
What was Brandon looking for?
Well, we knew that Jude was connected to this group. So we were looking for anything that could connect, the Arena to the reptilians or the lizard people. But we couldn't find anything. So we just waited and waited until finally they came out.
How long did you and Brandon follow the Arena around for?
We followed them around for a couple of weeks. But most of the places that we followed them to were just everyday, errand type places. The cleaners, the video store. But then finally, we followed them to this building. It was a strange building with a strange energy around it. And it was built in the shape of a pyramid. But what was really crazy was who was guarding the building. U.S. Secret Service agents. Which proved to us that the Arena and the Secret Service are connected.
Which could explain how Jude was able to get past the Secret Service agent guarding the elevator.
Yes.
Next, Brandon contacts the Marine whom they had originally met in Washington, D.C. The two men meet in a hotel room by the airport in Denver, Colorado. Mr. X rigs a hidden camera in the corner of the room so as to capture their conversation. But the camera is faulty and the audio distorted. Mr. X relayed what was said.
The Marine confirmed what Brandon had suspected. He told us that Jude was indeed part of a conspiracy involving U.S. Secret Service agents and the Arena.
And what was the conspiracy?
So those agents on the penthouse floor, they were supposed to let Jude into that room so he could get Dick Cheney shape-shifted, right? Yes. But he was stopped, so what happened? The plan failed. Your friend Jude didn't fail. He was double-crossed. But he got a part of the shape-shift on film. His mission was Dick Cheney, but he was betrayed. And once he realized this, he opted to trigger the Secret Service agent that betrayed him. What do you mean, trigger? Jude knew his hidden camera was still on. He fooled the agent into revealing himself right before the camera died.
Also in the meeting, Brandon is offered a dangerous opportunity. One that will destroy his life forever.
When we first met, I told you what I saw at a place called Bohemian Grove. Do you remember? Yeah, that's the place where you saw the shapeshift. I can get you into Bohemian Grove, and if you follow my instructions to the letter, you can expose what Jude was trying to reveal. You mean a shapeshift? How am I going to get into Bohemian Grove? I'll be in contact, Mr. Corey.
He got him in as part of the wait staff. I tried to talk Brandon out of this, but he wouldn't listen.
And yet you agreed to have your computer receive the signal from his hidden camera.
Yes.
Because the details of Brandon's daring infiltration into Bohemian Grove are limited, we have only conjecture to help guide us through the machinations of his journey. We must warn you, however, some viewers may find the following disturbing. first, we see only static as the hidden camera seems to try and find its signal. From what we can tell, Brandon has driven to a guarded location where he is cleared by this Secret Service agent to proceed. As Brandon follows instructions and makes his way towards this van, we see an ominous-looking structure in the distance. After being searched by security, Brandon is blindfolded and helped into the van. As he enters the van, his camera signal dies, and it does not reappear until after the van has pulled behind the service entrance to this mansion. As the waiters enter the kitchen area of the mansion, our video transmission dies, but we hear our first piece of audio transmission, and it's from Brandon.
I got it. I hope this kid and you can hear me.
Brandon tries to blend in at first by helping the other waiters set up in the grand ballroom inside the mansion.
And in these, the last years, world solution, I say to you, Ein Shigona, Soto Tepe Level Dort, Ein Scato Tepe Topo Toto.
That's obvious. Mark my words. Then another term that will bring this nation to the brink of evolution.
After serving drinks for these guests, Brandon makes his move.
This level is off limits. Turn around, go right back up those stairs where you came from, right now.
Now picture and audio are lost again. And when they are restored, we see that Brandon is in an unfamiliar hallway off the kitchen.
Secret Service everywhere. I did see. Alright, I'm taking out the map now. Gotta hope you're getting this. Fuck, is this the right way? It's freezing. Shit, I think it was. That's the door. I found the door.
Unfortunately, the hidden camera died before it could capture what Brandon was seeing. But we were able to piece together some of what he must have seen. After moving toward the center of the circle, Brandon tries to retreat. As he does, the camera captures a glimpse of some sort of being hovering over a severely mutilated young woman. And by enhancing the video images, we are able to see that this being resembles a reptilian. Brandon never came home from Bohemian Grove.
No, he disappeared.
What did you think had happened to him?
I thought he was captured.
But didn't you go looking for him?
Yes, of course I went looking for him. But then I stopped.
After watching Brandon's brave penetration into Bohemian Grove from his computer at his Hollywood apartment, Mr. X copied a DVD disc of the footage and left for the evening. But when he returned 3 hours later, he found that his home had been destroyed. The Los Angeles Fire Department has confirmed to Truthseeker TV that the fire which destroyed Mr. X's apartment was an act of arson. I attempted to interview the other tenants who live in the building. All but one declined to speak with me. While refusing to be interviewed on camera, the tenant did confirm that they had seen a suspicious-looking person loitering near the building just 24 hours before Mr. X's apartment was torched. Truthseeker TV employed a professional police sketch artist to render a drawing of the suspected arsonist directly from the tenant's description. And needless to say, we were shocked at the result. Is this Jude Kemper? Or is it just another member of the arena? Is it likely that the alleged arsonist just happens to bear an uncanny resemblance to a member of the group he and Brandon had been tracking? We think not. Fearing the worst, Brandon's ex-wife, Mary Hill, next hired this man, private investigator Tony Diaz, to try and find her ex-husband.
The first thing in locating a missing person is either A, credit card activity, or B, cell phone activity.
Just 3 weeks after hiring Mr. Diaz, Mary Hill received a phone call from the private eye's office. Mr. Diaz had found Brandon.
We tracked him all the way down to a cheap motel in Denver, Colorado, real close to the airport. He was in room 104. I went up there, I knocked on the door. He didn't even ask who it was. He opened it. I told him who I was. I told him I was looking for him. At that time, he just seemed a little confused, and he was just out of it, like he hadn't slept in a couple of days. I told him I was going to bring him home. He seemed very grateful to me, but at the same time submissive, do you know what I mean? Like he just didn't know. But I'll tell you what was interesting. On the walk to the car, I noticed that his 2 fingers were cut off. 2 fingers. I didn't know what or where, and I kind of asked him. He didn't really want to give me an answer, so I didn't want to pry. I took some of the bandages off to see the extent of it, and the 2 fingers were chopped off. I mean, I'd never seen anything like that. I asked him if I could take some pictures. He agreed, and I got him back home safely.
2 weeks after Brandon was found, Mr. X told us that he received a phone call on his mobile phone. On the other end was a woman. She was frantic and crying.
She didn't give her name. She just said that she was a psychic, that she was employed by the U.S. government, and that she was involved in something called remote viewing.
Fascinated students of government conspiracy for decades. Remote viewing, or RV, is a form of psychic ability. Many conspiracy theorists believe that the US government employs these remote viewers as spies.
This psychic called to tell me about a murder. A murder that hadn't even happened yet.
Did she say who was going to be murdered?
Yes. The Marine. This woman predicted a murder 2 weeks before it happened.
Brendan Corey has since returned to his Malibu home, but he never goes out. Guarded 24 hours a day by a team of private security guards and attended to by a small staff of nurses, Mr. Corey is no longer the vital person he once was. Truthseeker TV has repeatedly requested an interview with him, but we have been categorically refused all access, his family citing exhaustion and concern for the safety of his children. You went up to see Brandon in the weeks after he was found and brought back to his Malibu home.
Yes, he asked to see me. Brandon's not the same person anymore.
What do you mean?
Didn't just take his fingers. Done something to his mind.
Do you want to take a break?
I went up to see Brandon where he was living. You know, he didn't say much. I mean, what he did say was almost impossible to understand. He kept mumbling and mumbling, but I did hear him sort of say one thing. He kept saying the same word over and over again. He said the tapestry, the tapestry, the tapestry. And at first I didn't know what he was saying, you know, but I think he was referring to David Icke in London.
It's a few strands in a massive tapestry. If you want to see the tapestry, you have to keep digging, you have to keep reading, you have to keep searching, and then you'll find it.
What else, if anything, did Brandon tell you?
He told me to continue searching.
For Jude Kemper?
Yes, for Jude.
Will you continue searching?
No way, I'm done with this shit.
But yet you are talking to us.
Yes, in case something happens to me, I want the world to see the truth, right?
The first things to go, and that which goes quickest, is the eyes. They move to a reptilian form first. And it often happens when these guys are in a real emotional state or really, really angry.
That's not a normal pupil. A human pupil is round. That's a vertical pupil.
And he told her they were an extraterrestrial race that had taken over the planet, but no one realized it because they look human. This is what's happening, and these are the people behind the events in the world that cause the chaos and the hunger and the war. They have the ability and the knowledge to move to the human codes of the DNA and appear to us to be human, and move then to the reptilian codes of the DNA and shift literally in front of your eyes into a reptilian form. What you see on that footage is what I've been had described to me hundreds and hundreds of times by people from every walk of life you can think of.
I saw a shapeshift, Mr. Corey. A shapeshift, Mr. Corey.
When Truthseeker TV originally heard of this story, we were, of course, skeptical as to its authenticity, recognizing that such an elaborate tale would be nearly impossible to achieve without leaving trace of its deception. We were confident that a thorough investigation would prove the story to be fake. But after working for nearly 4 months, checking and rechecking every detail of Mr. X's story, Truth Seeker TV now believes this story to be true. With Brandon Corey sequestered in his Malibu compound and Mr. X in hiding, Truth Seeker TV will continue our investigation into Jude Kemper, the arena, and the connection between the leaders of our world and the reptilians.
Thank you.